Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram, Jai Ram.
Darshan, in the company of the saints, getting rid of what you haven't got. The mind being curbed, with its senses and organs centered in Atman, there appears a dazzling light before it, and the unreal world fades away as the shades of night disappear before the light of the sun. The imaginary world recedes from view and falls like a withered leaf. The intellect, cleared of the cloud of illusion which overhung the deluded mind, shines as clearly as the vault of the autumnal sky.
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram.
Yoga Vasistha. Setting Illusion Aside by Marianne Woodall. When I was a little child, I kept all my stuffed animals in bed with me at night. Cuddled under the blankets, they formed a barricade against my fears of the dark unknown, and I loved them dearly. As the years passed and they became more and more worn and cockeyed, it became obvious to me that this was not a grown-up method of dealing with my troubles. Yet I was so attached to them that I was well into grade school before I could admit the possibility of doing without them. At last I resolved to give them up. It took all my determination to pack my companions away in a dresser drawer, but despite the emotions that seemed at that moment to possess my whole being, at the same time there was the understanding that I absolutely must take this step toward maturity. This is my first and most searing memory of renunciation. When we realize that our old behaviors don't work, sooner or later we have to give them up. It was not solely my parents' pointed teasing that had broken my attachment to the toys of my childhood, although this did help to give me a more adult perspective. Deep inside, I really did understand that these outer companions were not in fact protecting me from my fears, nor was their innocent presence truly giving me the experience of love I craved. My renunciation lay not in the physical putting aside of childhood toys, but in that moment of inner comprehension, a shift in understanding, and the resolve to change. We are not bound by our possessions or relationships, but by our ideas about them. And this is why great beings tell us that what we must give up are not our families, jobs, and material comforts, but our wrong understanding about ourselves and the world. Everything we count on in the outer world to bring us happiness is flawed and impermanent. Try as we may, we cannot protect our possessions, eternalize our relationships, or make time stand still. Yet as long as we experience ourselves as limited, physical persons, and everything not us as the world, we are destined to spend the rest of our lives either chasing after things or running away from them. Thus we become angry and sad and disappointed with life, remaining ignorant of the one wondrous treasure that truly is our own, an inner state of absolute peace that is changeless and perfectly fulfilling. One July morning in 1968, I caught my first glimpse of the Big Sur coastline. Unexpectedly, the deeply shadowed forest road along which I was driving intersected the coastal highway, and I emerged in a burst of sunlight to a scene of unparalleled splendor, dark blue waves crashing on jagged rocks, white foam spraying high into the air, precipitous cliffs, and an expanse of sea that stretched to infinity. A whole new dimension of sense experience flooded my awareness. I was ecstatic. Stopping the car, I ran to the edge of the precipice, determined to drink in the scene with every pore of my being, the colors, the sounds, the smell of sea air. But even as I strained to hold the impact of that initial moment with unforgettable poignancy, I felt the priceless jewel of inner exaltation melting away like a snowflake. Imagining that the source was in the sea, the cliffs, the clouds, anywhere but within myself, I had tried to contain the experience with my senses, not understanding that what I'd felt was the joyful upsurging of my own inner being. This is the very moment the Vijnana Bhairava tells us to drop the outer form, to plunge deep into the feeling and become lost in the sublime self. Joy does not derive from the senses, nor can it be held by them. That is delusion. This is what we must renounce. When we feel incomplete and needy, when we consider the world to be separate from ourselves, our whole relationship with it becomes mediated by desire. We may be drawn to an object or repulsed by it, but whether we are moved by attraction or aversion, we are still traveling along the same high road of desire. Even to think of all our restless running back and forth, up and down on this well-beaten path is exhausting. Yet in this understanding there is great mercy. To ready ourselves for a radical leap in understanding, we must become consumed with longing for the truth. It is then that we are ready to listen to the words of a great master when he tells us, "Desire binds you, nothing else. Destroy it, and you are free." How do we become so irrevocably bound? As soon as I see someone tearing open a bag of chips or biting into a licorice bar, I have this thought, wouldn't it be nice to have one of those? If I'm absolutely indifferent to this message, the idea vanishes on the spot. If it's a soy milkshake or a carob-covered rice cake, whatever has caught my fancy, that image starts grabbing for my attention. There's even a kind of secret exultation about misbehaving, like a naughty little kid. So all this keeps dancing around in my mind, coming between me and whatever work I'm trying to do. And the next thing I know, I'm walking up to the cashier, just as I've planned it that way. Sometimes I even feel like a character in a dream, wondering, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? I don't seem to have the strength of mind to interrupt this cycle once it's begun. The only way I can see to stop it is to nip it in the bud. The first step in becoming free from desire is to restrain our wandering senses. This was Lord Krishna's command to Arjuna. Sometimes I play the part of scientific observer, training my focus not on what my eyes are seeing, but on how they are seeing. Becoming aware of the way my mind adds its own interpretation to the images that arise. As we examine, confront, and transcend the illusions that make us feel small, constricted, and unloving, our lives become filled more and more with our own light. Yet in the end, true renunciation is revealed to be the state of renouncing only our own delusion. When that state beyond duality is attained, everything you have been longing for will take place. Whatever you drink will be the nectar of joy. Whatever sound you hear will be the music of the divine self. Like a fish swimming in water, you will swim in the pervasion of divine consciousness. The entire cosmos will be seen as the self. Wherever you go, you will find your own self. And in this way, we will truly get rid of what we haven't got and attain that which we have always had. The ecstasy of the self. Getting Rid of What You Haven't Got by Baba Muktananda. The most important question raised in Vedantic philosophy is this: can you attain what you haven't attained, or do you attain what you already have? If you are going to get something which you didn't have before, what good is it, since you didn't have it before and get it now? There is every possibility that you'll lose it sometime. And the question of getting what you already have is ridiculous, isn't it? The truth is that we get what we have already got, not what we haven't got. We get rid of what we don't have, not what we have. This is Vedantic philosophy in its subtle and highest form. In Vedantic philosophy, there's nothing to be done. The only important thing is understanding. Through understanding comes liberation. A great philosopher sage of our country, Shankaracharya, says in a Sanskrit verse, the self or soul is always present. It has always been there and will always be there. It is wrong to think that you got it just a while ago, or will get it after you have done some spiritual practices. But though the self is eternally present within us, it appears as though it were not present, because we do not understand it and are not aware of it. First, we have to overcome our wrong idea. I won't use the term Maya, which is translated as illusion, because illusion is itself an illusion. It doesn't exist. And I won't use the term ignorance, because ignorance is as unreal as illusion. I say that we are not aware. We have made a mistake, as a result of which we don't achieve awareness of what is already there. Once we rectify our mistake, we will experience what we already are. One day a woman was taking a bath in her tub on the first floor. As she was bathing, a procession happened to pass by along the road below her window. The procession was quite splendid, and the moment this woman heard the music, she got out of her bathtub, dressed herself, put on all of her makeup, and came out to watch it go by. There were a lot of beautiful young women in the procession, wearing lovely rings and bracelets and necklaces. When she saw the other woman's necklaces, she wanted to feel her own necklace, which was very expensive and made of diamonds. She felt around her neck and was shocked to find that the necklace was not there. She stood in front of a mirror and checked again. The necklace was not around her neck. She was shocked and began to scream, "Help! Help! My necklace has been stolen! My necklace has been stolen!" Women from the neighborhood rushed to help, asking her what had happened. She said, "My diamond necklace has been stolen." They looked for the necklace all over the place, in this corner, in that corner, in this corner, in that corner, and it wasn't anywhere to be found. Then one clever woman asked her, "Where was the necklace the last time you saw it?" And she said, "Oh, it was around my neck." And touching her chest, she could feel the necklace. She exclaimed, "Look, here it is. It was hidden under my sweater." And she was happy. She had found the necklace. The fact is that the necklace was never lost, and it was never found. The false outcry was raised. "My necklace is lost! My necklace is lost!" And then a squeal of delight. "It has been found! It has been found!" But the necklace was never lost. Don't think we are any better than that woman. We look all over the place for the self, which is always present within. We look here and there and there and there. We look for inner consciousness, or we look for inner spaces and things which are outside us. And when we don't find them, where they are not, we feel disappointed. The necklace was never lost, and it was never found. The self has always been there. No matter where you are, you can experience the self as it has always been, right here and now. This is the awareness of subtle philosophical truths. An Upanishad seer urges man to see the one who illuminates the three ordinary states of consciousness: waking, dream, and deep sleep. There is a seer within who keeps watching all that happens during your waking state. It's quite obvious that the seer is always different from the seen. For instance, at this moment, I see one of you in the room where I am giving this talk. So, I am different from him, and he sees me, so he is different from me. Just as one who sees a pot lying in front of him can never be the pot, and is always separate from the pot. In the same way, one who perceives the body separately, distinctly, can never be the body, and is different from the body. We say, my tape recorder, my microphone, my towel, my hands, my head, my chest, my stomach, my legs, well, they are mine, but they are not me. During the waking state, we enjoy ourselves in different ways, eating and drinking and giving and taking and going and returning and so on. But the one who keeps on watching whatever we do is different from all the activities we are engaged in. Then there is the next step, the dream state, during which you are asleep. The inner witness remains aware whether you are sleeping or not. And it's also aware of the fact that you have started dreaming, as well as of the different things, all the strange events you see in the dream world while staying separate from all of them. When you wake up, someone inside you tells you, "Look, you saw an elephant in a dream," or "You saw a horse," "You saw yourself crying," or "You saw yourself laughing." Another poet saint says, "Oh man, look within, go into your own inner spaces, and you will see that the self, the light of the self, is reflected through the intellect. You will also realize that you are not the body, that you are not a separate entity, that you are something else." We should try to find out who is the seer, the observer, the knower of the waking state and the dream state, who remains separate from them while watching them, and who exists within. That is the highest truth. Anyone who experiences that truth as I am that, becomes that very truth. All this is God. All this is God. A talk by Gurumayi Chidvilasananda. With great respect and love, I welcome you all with all my heart. And over again we are made aware of the presence of God in our lives. And without this presence, life has no meaning. Without this experience, life is dry. If you do not go within and know your own worth, then nothing makes sense in this world. As the sages have always asked, why do you think you're alive? To eat all the food that exists in this world? Why do you think you're alive? To drink everything yourself? Why do you think you're alive? So that others can take care of you? Ask yourself, why? If you do not know your own worth, your own light, your own God, then life does not really make sense. Why take birth? Why die? Again and again taking birth and dying. The Shaivite sages of Kashmir said, the world is a play of consciousness. We exist so that we can live in this awareness all the time, so that we can have the experience of ecstasy every moment of our life, whether we are going through pain or pleasure. At every moment we can see the light of the truth. We exist to experience the pulsation, the spanda. The mind takes us away from the experience. The senses takes us away from the experience. It isn't that the mind is our enemy, but we make it so. It isn't that our senses are really our enemies, but we make them so. Take, for example, a person who has never said anything bad about you, never harmed you. Then someone else tells you this person is not good for you. You start thinking, he's not good for me. You think more, he's not good for me. You start to think even more, he is really not good for me. And that's it. You turn against him. And this person has nothing to do with you. You have made him your enemy. Just because you heard someone else say something, you were overpowered by your mind. There is no heart in it, no experience in it, just the mind. Now take the same person. Someone else says, he's so good for you. The person still hasn't said anything about you, has never done anything for you either, but you start thinking, oh, this person is good for me. This person is great for me. And then you think, he's so wonderful. I must get to know this person. You start feeling very good. Good about yourself, good about the person, and good about the world. There is goodness everywhere. Again, you have been overpowered by your mind. It does not matter whether your mind says something is good or bad. The result is the same. At this moment, the mind might say, this is good, but the next moment, the very same mind will say, this is not good. When we get what we want, does it really give us joy? There is no friction. There is no struggle. There is no fire. We want something. We have it. No wonder life becomes a big bore. But if you struggle because this desire is not good for you, it creates fire, and that very desire is burnt in the fire. Then you experience the greatness of your own self. Always giving in to your desires, one day you will repent. So before we find ourselves repenting, confessing, drowning in the well of guilt, it is better, the sages say, for us to struggle. This is a beneficial struggle. It is not harmful at all. Your hand reaches for something that isn't good. Stop your hand before it touches that. You know that if you touch fire, you will be burnt. You know that if you go in deep water, you will drown. You know that if you go out in a storm, the wind will carry you away. So you stay away from all those dangers that are obvious. But what about the fire, the deep water, the storms that are not obvious? When it's not so clear, not so noticeable, the sages say, you have to get in touch with your own self. The true master is your own self, and your own self is there for you all the time. Delusion. Delusion has become the great companion of all living beings. Delusion makes itself look like a deity. Delusion makes itself look like a beautiful wonder. Delusion makes itself look like the altar of God. And if we do not remove ourselves from this delusion, it will keep us away from the truth, away from the experience of God. So understand, if you keep away from delusion, you live in the experience of the truth all the time. Because it isn't that once in a while we have a mystical experience, and the rest of the time we wash dishes and scrub floors and yell at everyone. The mystical experience becomes our life itself. Life is mystical. Do you know the secrets of life? And if you don't, isn't it mysterious? Life is a mystical experience within itself, but due to our delusion, we are not able to see it this way. Therefore, the yogic texts speak about making your entire being a holy place and your soul God. What is your life built on? Where does your life exist? What is the root of your life? Through this kind of self-inquiry, who am I? Why was I born? What am I doing? What am I to achieve in this world? Discover the foundation of life, and the true foundation of life is the Absolute. It is the root of all existence. If you do not find the foundation of life, then you are carried away by the emotions and the moods of the mind. And more than anything else, what takes you away from your own self is anger. Anger toward yourself, anger toward life, anger toward God. When you allow yourself to be ruled by anger, everything within is burnt in that fire. Therefore the Lord said to Arjuna, "He who is able to withstand the urge arising from passion and anger in this very life before he dies is a poised and happy person." When your heart speaks the truth, but everything else is against you, the saving grace is renunciation. When you have absolute detachment, you are able to fulfill the vow of your heart. This attracts the grace of God, and this is what allows you finally to merge into God. In this renunciation, you allow that which must come to you to come to you. You allow that which must go away from you to go away from you. And how does this kind of renunciation become possible? Through silence. It is only through silence that you can perceive the truth in everything.